Signing Joe Flacco shouldn't make anyone feel like the Browns have Super Bowl aspirations, but he does make football more enjoyable in Cleveland in 2025. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. I've been very adamant to temper expectations when it comes to the Browns signing a 40-year-old Joe Flacco, but he will make football in Cleveland more enjoyable. We'll talk about that. Plus, I'm more convinced than ever that the Browns may actually have a shot at drafting Shedeur Sanders later on in the first round, and Nick Chubb getting CRYPTIC. All of that and more. I do want to thank you for being here every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making this your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed, with bonus content on some weekends as well. And it's totally free to you. All you got to do, hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. And of course, the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, where you can also get involved in the show by sharing your thoughts on anything we discussed today in the comment section. This is your team, so be part of the conversation every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And I want to be clear, because on Friday, when Joe Flacco was signed, I don't know if I did it on this platform specifically. I wear many hats in this business, as I've made very clear. So I host a number of different places. But I don't know if it was on here specifically that I tried to sort of temper people's expectations and talk about what adding Joe Flacco means and how it's an open competition and people should be excited. But I'm not banking on him playing 17 games next year, and I stand by all those comments. But I do want to make it clear that, like, the one thing that Flacco fixes for this team, because nobody should see Joe Flacco signing and think, like, Super Bowl, or everything's back on track now. Like, the season is saved, and 2025 is going to be this magical thing again, the same way it was in 2023 when he took the Browns to the playoffs during that magical 5-game run that he had. I just, again, 2 years removed from that, or going on 2 years removed from that, I'm not expecting all those grand things from Flacco. But I will say the one thing that he will bring to this city, to this team, to this fan base, is excitement, is enjoyable football. And I think that is an important thing to note here, because last year was a miserable experience. And I've talked about it a dozen times now. The apathy that I felt, or you could feel rather, from the fan base, from you as a supporter of this team, whether it was, I mean, listen, I saw it just in doing this podcast, even with how uninterested people were late in the year and talking about the Browns, because they were just ready for the season to be over. A 3-win season will do that to you. But it started from week 1 and sort of perpetuated over the course of the next 7 weeks before Deshaun got hurt. And it was just constant losing in an offense that looked absolutely inept, and, turned back the clock on what offense is supposed to look like in the NFL in 2025. I mean, it was miserable. It was a miserable experience for everybody. It was a miserable experience for me covering the team. And so, yeah, there were some moments like, Jameis Winston comes out that week 8 and leads the Browns to victory over the Ravens, and that was exciting. Then you had the Steelers win on Thursday night in the snow globe game. Like, there were certain points and things that got people sort of feeling the good vibes about the Browns again. But it was always just like a fleeting moment. It was never something that stuck and stayed for the entirety of the season. And so with Flacco back in the fold, I think there's a little bit of that returns to this team. I do, because it's the fact that he was adored the way he was here in Cleveland in 2023 for what he did in leading the team to the playoffs on, late in the season and clinching on that Thursday night game. Like, the vibes of that sort of still resonate a couple years later, and it gives people something to be excited about. He became a Cleveland icon in a matter of weeks. He became a fan favorite in a matter of weeks, and conversely, or I guess additionally, he fell in love with Cleveland. Like, he loved it here. He wanted to come back last offseason, and they decided not to do it, and they went with Jameis Winston instead. And now they've brought them back to in sort of a full Avengers Endgame moment when Thanos is sitting there and he says, "You couldn't live with your own failures, and where did that bring you back to me?" Same sort of thing applies here with Flacco. Like, they couldn't live with the mistakes of not bringing him back last year, the errors of their ways. And so here they are bringing him back a year later to try to inject some life into this team, this fan base, and this quarterback room that needs a veteran presence, and he's it. So again, I'm not saying get excited. Like, I'm not saying that there should be some crazy expectations now that Flacco's back in the fold. But I recognize, and I can tell even from just a couple days of this signing being breaking news, that people are excited about Browns football again, and that is important. That is something that matters. And it's better to talk about this team. It's better to cover this team. It's better to go on the ride with you as a fan when you're into it and you're excited. You have something to cheer for and feel good about. And Flacco, I think, adds that to the fold here. So at the very least, and I'm not telling you not to be excited about the move either. And maybe there is something still in it for Flacco where he performs at a good enough level that he does play for most of the season, and he maybe does keep the Browns in contention for the playoffs through at certain points of the year. We'll see. That it's certainly more possible that they are able to do that this year than I think last year. And with Flacco in the fold, like, he gives you something that the team didn't have last year, which was at least competent quarterback play. So I'm not trying to, I wasn't trying to poo-poo the reactions on Friday to, downplay the situation or anything. Like, I want fans to be excited. So if you're excited about the Flacco addition, you should be. And if for nothing else, it's because of what this means in terms of, how the Browns, how Browns football will be received next year. I've talked so much this offseason about just easy PR moves. One of those is bringing back potentially Nick Chubb, which I've still maintain I think is going to happen. And the longer he's a free agent, the more likely I think that is. So like that's something that I think is an easy slam dunk move this organization could do to get people excited, get fans back on board, get season ticket holders feeling the good vibes again. Like, there's some easy moves this team could make this offseason that get people excited. One of those is drafting a quarterback. Even if it's not a 2, at some point, everyone gets excited about a rookie quarterback, especially if it's early in the draft. So drafting somebody at 33 maybe gets gets people jazzed up. And I'm not saying you do it just to, get the fan base excited. You still got to make smart decisions in building a team and a roster if you're Andrew Berry. But there are some easy moves this team can make that are slam dunks that get people excited. Flacco's one of them. Adding Flacco back in the fold here after what he did in 2023 is a slam dunk type of signing that gets everybody sort of at least feeling something in the way of excitement for the Cleveland Browns, even if we can all accept right now, sitting here today on April 15th, that it's probably not going to end with hoisting a Lombardi trophy. And that's just going to be sort of par for the course here this year, maybe even next year. But Flacco brings excitement. He brings an energy back to this fan base, this city, this team that had frankly been lost over the last season in 2024 with everything going on and the Deshaun Watson cloud that hung over things and just everything that got wrapped up into a 3-win season. There's some light at the end of the tunnel here with at least something that if it is another 5-win season or less, there'll at least be something for you to tune in for and get excited about and enjoy watching and enjoy the ride rather than just being miserable while you watch your team lose every week. So I think that is the one thing that Flacco provides, if nothing else. And for that reason, I can totally understand and I support anybody who's celebrating this move and thinks it's a good one for the Browns. And to be clear, I never said it was a bad move for the Browns. I just didn't want people thinking like the quarterback room is settled and everything's okay. I still think this means open competition. I still think this means that whatever rookie they draft is going to have a chance to play pretty quickly. Because you got to I think we're going to see all 3 quarterbacks, Flacco, Pickett, and a rookie at some point next season. It just feels inevitable for a team that's trying to figure that position out still. And when you got a rookie quarterback, you play him more often than not these days. So I think we'll see all of them at some point. Speaking of the rookie quarterbacks that the Browns could be considering, I'm officially, with just a week and a couple of days out from the draft, more convinced than ever that the Browns are going to have a shot at drafting Shedeur Sanders outside of the top 10 and close to where they drafted 33. I'll tell you why coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. You ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take advantage of the all in one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay in on the same page without any stress. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, so in lieu of talking about the quarterback position and a potential rookie that the Browns are going to be looking to add in the draft here coming up next week, which feels inevitable, I actually think there's a better chance than ever. Sitting here today, and there's not much time for me to change my mind at this point. I think I'm just going to be stuck on this now going into the draft next week. I am more convinced than ever that the Browns will have that Shedeur Sanders will fall in a range where the Browns will at least have a chance to trade up and get him. Whether or not they will remains to be seen. Depending on if it's like the early 20s and somebody else is maybe thinking about trading up or whatever, are the Browns going to be willing to pay that price? I would probably lean no, because Andrew Berry rarely does that. He's only really traded up for a guy and been that aggressive once with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. They obviously hit on that player, but I don't know if they're going to do that for Shedeur Sanders here, especially if they like somebody like Milroe as much as is being reported, or Tyler Shuck as much as is being reported. They could just stand pat, take him at 33. They could maybe trade into the late first round to get a guy. I don't know if they're I don't know if they're going to be willing to go to the early 20s to do it, to give up what they have to give up. But the reason I am more convinced than ever that there will at least be there will be a Shedeur will fall into striking distance, is maybe a good way to put it, like a range where the Browns could get to if they want to be aggressive, is based off of some comments from Albert Breer, Sports Illustrated Monday Morning Quarterback. He wrote in his column on Monday that not only does he not think Shedeur Sanders is going in the top 3 picks, so Titans, Browns, Giants, which is notable because everyone for a while was saying if the Browns pass on Shedeur Sanders, then the Giants would be the next in line to take him, and they very well might. And the Giants are holding a private workout with him this week, for what it's worth, like one final look at him. So maybe they will be the ones that pull the trigger, and I'll be way off here. But Breer is pretty tapped in, and I believe a lot of what he has to say when he reports things. So I'm giving him some credit here, because Albert Breer is one of the more trusted insiders out there. And he added on top of that it also feels like it'd be surprising if the Las Vegas Raiders, New York Jets, or Saints took him in the top 10. Now, I also can tell you, Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints, check him out if you haven't already. He's fantastic at his job. I love working on as part of his team here with the Locked On NFL shows, because he does a phenomenal job and he's great to learn from. But he is in my text conversations with Ross, he gets the sense that the Saints, and they're the biggest wild card to me in the top 10 now, because of the news over the weekend about Derek Carr's shoulder and the fact that he might not play at all next season. That would feel like an instant sign. Yes, you need a quarterback. They're going to take Shedeur Sanders at 9, but it sounds like they might not necessarily be wanting to do that. They might wait till maybe the second round to get somebody that they like or something like that. So I even though it feels like it's sort of etched in stone, if he falls that far, that the Saints would be the team to take him, because now they have a quarterback dilemma. Maybe they pass too. And now Albert Breer is writing that as well, even with the Derek Carr stuff, that they're likely to pass on him. And the Breer's report goes on to add, and I'll read you sort of verbatim the quote here. I've had more than one person say to me that if Sanders goes in the first round, it'll be because an owner got involved. I'm having a really hard time finding coaches or scouts who believe Sanders is a first-round talent. This, by the way, is separate from any issue anyone has with his personality. Those questions exist, but lots of teams make exceptions in that department in the past to take guys with special talent. And basically the summation here is that Teams don't think that he is that special talent. Whether they like his personality or not, they just don't think he is that type of talent that's worthy of overlooking some of those concerns they might have to do that. I found this column fascinating. I find Breer's insight always fascinating. And the fact that he put in writing, he said multiple people tell him that it would take an owner getting involved for the team for a team to take Shedeur in the first round, like the entire first round. That is some stunning stuff. And now, listen, I wouldn't put it past Jimmy Haslam to intervene at times. We know that's been a knock on him over the years, that sometimes he gets too involved in these conversations, in these processes, and he sometimes leaves a mark, for better or for worse, on the organization that he shouldn't. We know that that's a conversation in regards to the Deshaun Watson situation. So there's always those hurdles to clear with a team like the Browns. I don't necessarily think, given what Jimmy Haslam said at the owners' meetings last week, that he's going to do that for somebody like he's going. I don't think he's going to be banging the table for Shedeur Sanders when he understands that they might have to take a couple years to figure this thing out. Maybe he'd be willing to bang the table for him if he's there at 33, or if he's there in the late 30s and you trade up and get him. But I don't know if he's going to be doing it where it's like, you have to take this guy, get back up in the first round, do it now. As much as people don't want to give Jimmy Haslam credit because he has been overzealous at times in the way he's run his team, I do think we've seen in recent years his ability to sort of bite his tongue and be more hands-off and let his people in power, make those key decisions. The football people make the key decisions, and he chimes in when he feels it's appropriate. I don't know that that'll be the case here. I hope it's not the case here, because sometimes that can be detrimental to an organization. But I do think that, given what Breer is writing, that Shedeur Sanders is going to fall to at least a range where it can be striking distance for the Browns to get back up and get him. That probably means to the 20s. I think he's going to fall through the teens, and because if the Saints really aren't going to take him, I think he's falling through the teens, and that tells me, like, okay, Pittsburgh's maybe that next team in line that could take him at 21, but the Steelers aren't really. I mean, they did reach on Kenny Pickett, so I guess I shouldn't say that. But the Steelers generally make pretty smart, measured decisions with their first round picks. I could see him going like offensive line or defensive line, or just one of those like really gritty Steelers picks with when they're on the clock. Maybe even running back, because they do need a running back. Like Omarion Hampton could be in play for them. So I don't know that I'm convinced the Steelers are going to do it either. And then if he gets past 21, then it's like that to me is striking distance. Anything like where it's 10 picks or less that you're trading up for, that's a range I think the Browns could realistically consider trading up. I think you'd probably have to get a little further, but I do think they would potentially look to do it and think about it if it's going to be there. So at this point, whether the Browns are going to trade up or not, and I'm not saying they are, I'm actually more inclined, and I'll say it again here, to think that they won't trade up for Shedeur Sanders even if he does fall. Unless, again, it's like 30, 31, 32. Because then it's like you get the fifth-year option. You might as well move up a couple picks to do something like that. But I'm more inclined to think they won't trade up for Shedeur Sanders, because I don't think they're going to think the values that is worth it. They don't usually do things like that. Andrew Berry doesn't usually do things like that. But I will say that I think he's going to at least fall to a point where he's in striking distance for the Browns to consider it. They may not do it, but I think he will fall to a place where they could consider trading up if they want to, because based on what's being reported, it sure sounds like Shedeur's stock has really flipped here in recent weeks. Now, this could all be BS. Not even recent weeks, like over the last month or so. This could all be BS, and he still goes in the top 10, right? I mean, these things are so unpredictable, but it does feel like at this point, if there's a player who's going to slide, it feels like it's going to be him. And I feel that's unfortunate, because I like Shedeur Sanders, and I don't want to see him slide that way, but it sure does feel like that could be what happens here, because people like Breer and other insiders continue to report that there's just not a lot of teams that have first-round grades on them. And it's a fascinating sort of litmus test, or some fascinating insight into the minds of NFL scouts and how they do these valuations and how they view a player like Shedeur Sanders. Nick Chubb getting cryptic on social media, that doesn't sound like him. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. The NBA playoffs are almost here. In fact, the play-in tournament gets rolling tonight, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get involved in the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes it so easy, whether I'm picking my favorite team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, or diving into player props to get your money and cash out if you win. And they make the selection so easy. They have different categories, NFL, NBA, whatever it might be. And then they already have some prop bets set up for you where you can just trail other people who are doing some of the more popular props. I can guarantee you I'll be betting plenty on the Cleveland Cavaliers throughout their postseason run, however long it's going to go. And I hope it ends in the NBA Finals, but we shall see. It'll be fun to follow along. You can tag along with me. You can trail me in the app. Plus, when the game tips off, you can combine live bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win even bigger. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, so the Nick Chubb saga, or the Nick Chubb free agency, I should say, continues to roll right along. He continues to be a free agent. Nobody has signed him to this point. I continue to bang. I will continue saying this. The longer he's out there, the longer he goes unsigned, I think the better it is for the Browns. The more likely it is that he returns to Cleveland. But as the millennials and social media people that we are in society today, we like to analyze everything that happens on social media. And so Nick Chubb, in a recent post, posted some pictures of himself working out, a video of himself squatting and doing some other workouts. It combined as a fourth photo in the roll here of Batman looking out at the city of Gotham from behind. And we know Nick Chubb loves Batman. So anytime he includes Batman in a post, people always wonder if it has some deeper meaning. And it's the caption with all these photos on Instagram reads, "They've already wrote my ending when I'm just getting started." And so everybody's freaking out. They think this means, oh, he's talking about the Browns. The Browns, I've written him off and they don't want him back. And they're telling him he can't play anymore. And he's just getting started. And everyone thinks this is a sign that he's now not coming back to Cleveland. He's getting cryptic on social media. Now, I'll say this. This is the second time there's been a post like this with Nick Chubb this offseason, where it's felt like he's gotten a little more, shown a little inside or inside baseball, if you will. Like he's shown a little bit of his psyche and how he feels right now at this juncture as he's rehabbing from another season-ending injury and trying to bounce back and be this great player again and all these different things. So I get why that's where people's minds go. I get why it feels like I forget what the first comment was. I should have looked it up before the show, but it was something about like, I want to say it was something where people were making the connection that like he felt slighted by the Browns because it was right after they had talked about Angel Berry had talked about like they're going to let him test the market and they'll probably, they're going to meet with him, but they're going to let him test the market. And so people felt like it was a direct shot at like, oh, he feels slighted by this team and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know like the full I don't know Nick Chubb's full emotions or where his head's at. Like maybe he does feel slighted by the Browns because he's given it his all these last since he was drafted in 2018. And he feels that he has been disrespected and he's put his body on the line. He's suffered 2 big injuries and he wants to get paid for his services here in Cleveland and they're not doing it. But he's also been very adamant that he wants to play in Cleveland, that he wants to be here. So much so that I've convinced myself that I think he would take at least a little bit of a discount if the prices are sort of similar that he's getting offered, or the contracts he's getting offered are pretty similar, to come back to Cleveland because he loves it here so much and he loves this fan base so much and he wants to finish his career here. He's talked about that before. So I'm convinced that it's still on the table here. And I'll say this about the posts, both of them that he's done this offseason. I don't think this is him taking a shot at the Browns. I really don't. To me, this just feels like Nick Chubb doing what Nick Chubb does in terms of like he's using Batman, his alter ego, as kind of this source of motivation, and he's putting out these quote. I think he's speaking to like the haters. We know Nick Chubb does not like the media. He does not like people like me because I come on platforms like this and say like Nick Chubb is cooked. I don't really think that, but if I do, then he picks up on that. Like to me, this is Nick Chubb firing back at all the people who are doubting his ability to still be a great player and play at a high level. And maybe the Browns in conversations have told him flat out they don't think he's going to play at a high level anymore. I don't think that would be the way Andrew Berry would go about his business. I think they still probably feel pretty highly of Nick Chubb and they think he'd be a great person to have in this locker room, on this team, etc. And that if they can get the right price, they'll bring him back. But I also understand like it's a business. They don't have a lot of money to spend because their cap situation is garbage right now. and they do have to be smart about like the way they handle the business and finances of these things. So from that perspective, maybe they have offered him something that he's disrespected by, and that's why he's doing this. I just think this is more so Nick Chubb just being Nick Chubb when it comes to, he knows there's a lot of haters out there who have counted him out. I mean, he talked about this last year. He heard all the noise and people saying he couldn't do it anymore. He wasn't going to be back. He wasn't going to be able to return to form, all these different things. And he came back and tried to prove it. I think there was gradual progress for him. Like he looked a little bit better each week he was out there, but he was never the same Nick Chubb. And maybe he'll never be the same Nick Chubb again. But I would still argue 80% of Nick Chubb from before is still a damn good running back in the NFL. And so I think he's still got something left in the tank. Still think he's got enough left in the tank that he could be a factor for the Browns. Again, I get them wanting to sort of play, make sure the price is right. And I don't necessarily think this is him specifically taking a shot at the Browns. It could just be him taking a shot at everybody that's maybe called him or called his representation and tried to like reach out about deals. Maybe he feels like he's due more from anybody out there and that the league as a whole is kind of counting him out. And so he's ready to prove them wrong. But I don't think he's just like calling out the Browns here with his Batman cryptic post, even though it makes for some fun commentary, some fun conversations like this one. I still think, by the way, Nick Chubb ends up in Cleveland. So he can be cryptic all he wants. I think this ends with Nick Chubb in a Browns uniform. And I talk about a season being enjoyable again, or just the Browns football experience being enjoyable again. Flacco and Chubb in the same offseason, they come back. Like, whether that offense is going to be electric, whether or not the Browns are going to only win 4, 3, 5 games, that could happen, but it will be fun and enjoyable for the fans like yourself to follow if those two guys are at least involved in the conversation and in the game plan. So keep the spirits up. I don't think he's being cryptic on purpose to call out the Browns and like send some message. I think this is just Nick Chubb and the way he motivates himself. Another episode down with you, Dog Pound. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. Plenty more to come this week as we count down the days till the NFL draft. A little over a week away. Very much looking forward to it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you make Locked On Browns your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft, or you can keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. Peace.